Hi, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of Unsaturated, topics you want to hear about, but you may not find in the traditional news cycle. Let's face it, 24/7 news is a lot. It can feel saturated with the same stuff over and over on replay. So we want to tackle some other issues that you may not find when you just click on your TV or head on to your favorite news page. The first topic we are covering, per your votes, is youth sports. The craziness of youth sports. Don't get me wrong, I love them. They're great for the kids. They teach physical fitness, routine, networking, teamwork, respect, and they can even lead to a collegiate career. But they have gotten a little bit wacky, a little bit stressful, and very, very expensive. So I sat down with an expert. She's a superstar, Colleen McGarity. She played at Northwestern and was the captain of the women's lacrosse team in 2011. She was a 3-time national champion. She's an All-American. She heads up the Triple H girls lacrosse club team here out of Philadelphia. She also is the head coach for Penn Charter's girls varsity team. And she was also crowned something very new, very significant, probably the most important in her life, the title of mom. Take a listen. Going back to when you were in middle school and then high school, what has changed in the last decade or 2 decades?
When I played lacrosse in high school, it was just summer lacrosse, and it was like simple and laid back and such an easy avenue to play other sports. And now, like I always say to teammates that I see in the club route is like, I wish we can go back to club lacrosse with no fall. Like no fall was just like a thing, and it was nice. It's just become this year-round thing no matter what you do. And then when you stop, it's like more stuff happens, and then it's just more things pop up. So I think that's the biggest change.
Why do you think, I know you mentioned the social media part, but why do you think it needs to be all year round? Because it's not just lacrosse. I mean, if you're into basketball, it's basketball. If you're into baseball, it's well into September that bleeds over from the spring. But why do you think that every sport has become an all year round commitment?
I honestly think just like once one person starts to do it, then it just like becomes this trickle effect. And I always say that to girls that are going through the recruiting process, there's always going to be someone doing more. Like try to stay in your own lane and try not to like compare or think you have to do that, because everyone's path is different. I've coached so many different athletes that have done like the least amount and are doing really, really well right now. And I've done it where people have done a lot and it's worked out for them, but just trying to find that balance. But I also think social media is hard because you see people doing other things. So it's like, oh my goodness, this girl's out here doing this. I need to go to that. Where you used to not see that. I used to not know if like my peer was doing something else. It wouldn't bother me. So I think that's huge. And then I just also think like the events and showcases, and I obviously know the lacrosse world well, but I think soccer and basketball, we're actually a little bit more tamed than them. So it's even
especially
more,
soccer.
And now there's like more teams. So if you don't make a team, there's an opportunity to play somewhere else. And if you don't make that, there's still an opportunity to play, and then more tournaments. So I think there's just more accessibility, creating like these never ending, opportunities.
I always had said to, my kids, it doesn't really matter what sport you play, or how many wins you have or how far you go. It's really about understanding teamwork and flexibility and respect, and, making sure that you can adjust to different personalities and you have a work ethic, blah, blah, blah. But when you have your first child, which I know he's really young, but you think every age they get to, you think, oh, this is the mark. Like 11 is, they're getting old now. Like we have to do this. Now I have 3. So I was like that with Sienna, my oldest, but now I look at Alexander, who's 11. I'm like, he's only 11. Like it's going to be fine. So what would you say as a coach would be the age where, we should start looking at whether we want to invest in this? And then what advice would you give to the younger parents who are going all in at 10 and 11 and pulling their hair out?
So, I mean, I think allowing them to choose to do multiple sports, I think is the biggest thing. So they can figure out what sport fits for them. And they might be like, I'm really good at this sport. I'm not so good at these other ones. So I only want to do this one. I think that's where they that's a little bit of a downfall because it's like, then they only do that all the time and they're only working
Mm-hmm.
those muscles and then it becomes a lot, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
it's just making sure that they stay balanced, and whether it be like, I don't even doing a different version of lacrosse or something, or not lacrosse only, but you know what I mean. But I think just making sure that they stay well balanced. And
Yeah.
I think that's really, really important. It's okay just to play township for a while to figure out like, okay, this is the sport that I like. I tell people that are looking at Triple H, I'm like, if you're not into it right now, it's not worth the money. Just like do township again. We can maybe do a couple of trainings, or you can. I'm very laid back at the youth ages, like just like you can come in and go. We have guest players, so it's not as much like you sign up and you're in this for a year, and you know,
Yeah.
trying to make that a little bit more a la carte. Not every club's like that.
Right.
But I think it's okay to play township, and I think some people think, oh my gosh, they're not on a club team. The
Yeah.
world is over, right?
You know, in middle school, and this varies from school to school, but when kids start playing after school and then they have games after school, like sometimes it's enough for that kid. Like they don't
100%.
need to go out and then play another sport at 8 o'clock at night.
When
Like
I
we
hear
also have
people's
to,
schedules, I'm like, you're gonna get burnt out, and like, do you have time to go watch TV or like do homework
yeah,
or just like sit
yeah,
and be a kid? And I just think
yeah,
it's really important. Like when we were playing, we didn't have those other opportunities, so we naturally just it was simpler. So I
yeah,
just think to simplify it a little bit is going to go a long way. And you know, it's okay to take a break. It's okay to go on vacation and not play. And like, you know, like I think just being, you know, mindful that they're young, and it's if they do play at the highest level, it's a job then. So if you make it a
yeah.
job now, then they're going to lose the love of the sport and they probably won't end up making it to that mark.
You kind of have to let everything play out because the kids that are maybe rock stars at 7 may not
Mm-hmm.
be rock stars at 17 and vice versa.
Totally. I mean, it happens in girls all the time with puberty, and then it happens, I think, with boys too that grow quicker than others. So I mean, I've had so many of my old teammates that were amazing in middle school and then really never played out in college, or even amazing in high school and then never played in college. So you definitely have to let it play out, and it has to be like a passion of the kid. And I think that's the
Right.
most important thing is like when I go through these processes of recruiting, when it's kid driven, it's a lot easier. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, not that the parents can't be involved and they can't call or not, but it's they are passionate. They want to do it all and they want to get better. It just makes that you know that that's truly what they want to do.
What do you think that parents should be looking at when they look at different clubs? Like, what do you, because I have a friend who has been coaching out west for a long time, like probably 25 years. And he's like, listen, you guys are in a hotbed, like on the East Coast around Pennsylvania and Maryland. Like, his sort of philosophy is, especially with the younger ages, it's more practice is better than more tournaments, whether you're talking about, again, soccer, basketball, lacrosse, field hockey, whatever. But do you subscribe to that theory that in the
100%.
beginning? Okay.
Yeah, I think,
Well,
I mean, the kids need to practice. Like in college, you have double the amount of practices than you do games. And, you know, there are teammates that don't even get into the games, but they're still so important because we have so many practices, right? Like you
yeah.
have to practice. And I think that's really important because I think there are a lot of clubs that keep signing up for like leagues, or we're going to go this, and it seems like a lot, but like, I'm like, just stop signing up for all that stuff and just practice.
Yeah.
Like just practice.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a great point because I do think it's easier for me to coach a game. Way easier.
Sure.
Like I would, like my younger coaches would rather coach a game. Practices are hard. Like you have to plan.
Right.
You have to go over different skill sets. We need to actually connect with the kids. So I think that's a good question to ask. Like as you're looking at clubs, like how many practices do they have and what do they look like? And make sure your kid gets along with the coaches and all that stuff.
When you, as a coach, watch some of the sidelines, whether it's in high school or for club, I mean, I can imagine you have some stories about parents, like
Yep.
otherwise rational people demonstrating some pretty irrational behavior. I mean, I've felt that with myself in moments. Like, I'm like, you know, I mean, first of all, like it's
Yeah.
your kid, right? So if you see your kid get hurt, or I mean, I remember I had my 12-pound dog with me at one of Sebastian's township lacrosse games, and the refs were like not calling anything, and he got the shit kicked out of him. And like, I remember like going on the field with the dog and be like, you need to get this game under control.
Oh
But
my
like
goodness.
looking back, I'm like, I was such an idiot.
Yeah.
But I mean, as parents, I think we have to go in sort of prepared, like, right? Like, what would your advice be on the sideline, how to compose yourself, even in those moments where you feel like you're just in mama bear mode?
Right. I mean, I always tell parents, like, I know this is because you care. Like, you care about your children. So it all comes from, like, you would hope, like, a good part in your heart, but it's just being able to be mindful. Like, when you get to the college coaches on the sideline world, they watch that. So, like, it's really, really important. I've had multiple college coaches call me about parents. I had a coach call me and say, we're not recruiting this kid anymore. They came on a visit and we had a really uncomfortable conversation with the dad. And I was like, it's unfortunate, but like, and it's because of questions that he was asking pertaining to playing time and stuff like that, or just be careful, I think, with what you say. And I always say it's okay to be passionate and excited on the sideline. Just make sure it's positive and cheering for everybody. Like, even if you're just cheering for your child, that's kind of a red flag. Or like saying get the ball or go to goal, go to goal, go to goal. Like, try to cheer more and coach less. I mean, my dad's gotten in arguments at games, and like some of them are funny, or it's just like, you know what I mean? And if they were caught on camera right now, we'd laugh at it. But I do think it's more like it's caught on camera, but I also think it is so intense, and it's like everyone thinks that it's like it's going to happen in that moment. And I'm always like, what is the point of yelling or berating the ref or freaking out? What are you getting out of it? Like, I'm not going to go back in time and change it. Like, if anything, you're going to get more calls against you throughout the game. So I'm always like, hey, and as a coach, I'm always like, the kids are reflecting the energy I'm bringing. So I'm like, guys, we don't yell at the refs. We have to keep playing. Like, you got to move on. Even at practice, someone's like, you got to make that call. I'm like, do you think a ref makes every call? Like, don't say that to me. Like, just keep playing.
As a parent, where is the balance in encouraging versus pushing too hard versus negative feedback versus just too much feedback?
Right. I know that's a good question. It's obviously situational, but I think I read a lot of books and I read a lot of tweets, I guess, throughout my season. I think the biggest thing is like when you can tell kids you're proud of them, like, or you loved how hard they worked, and like phrasing in that, like, or if they didn't have a good day and they didn't work hard, like, hey, I think you can work harder. Do you know what I mean? Less about stats, less about like rankings and stuff like that, more about energy and effort. Because I think there's times where a kid could have the best game ever and not have stats, and like they need to understand that. And that's the way I coach. It's the way at my club, we don't ever take stats, and I don't even acknowledge them. And I mean, it's great when people break records later on, but like in the moment, it shouldn't be about that. And I think that's kind of like these parents get wrapped into like their kid needs to have all of the accolades.
And, you bring up that point because you brought up social media, and I think that has a lot to do with stats. Like I scroll through Instagram and see all these, it's actually more probably on the boys' side if we're talking about just lacrosse, but, even at tournaments, just every sort of stat under the sun, right? And the clubs really push it, these certain clubs, and whether it's like a national team, at 12 years old, I'm not sure who's keeping track then at 17 or 18 of what you did at 12 years old. But it is social media. Like, is that just like a marketing strategy?
So. And I have this like love-hate, and with US Club Lacrosse started these rankings, and it's like, all right, great. You did all this work and it's awesome. Good job. You've created a great business, but it's created this like obsession with like what team we're ranked and who we're playing and all that. And I hate it. And I don't talk about it, because you're in this potentially to get better, to get a college scholarship, to go play at the next level. No college coach has ever asked if we've won a game. They haven't asked stats, and they've never asked what we're ranked. So I think it's really important that the end game, those people don't care about any of the things that people are obsessing over. And I try and be like, hey, it's just a game. And we also need to get good at losing. You don't want to like be a losing team, but you need to understand how to lose, reflect on it, get better, and like lose with grace and be like, what do we need to do and adjust? And I would take like 10 losses at a 1 goal like differential than 10 games where we won by 20, like,
Right.
and I think that's kind of the balance of being like, all right, let's play the best, let's lose to the best, let's beat the best, let's keep getting better.
Hmm.
But yeah, social media has made that difficult because people care so much about like retweeting it and reposting it. Also rushes the recruiting process. So I talk to college coaches all the time. They said they would love to know if girls and boys would choose the same school or rush their decision if social media weren't in the picture at all. If
Yeah.
that like post didn't exist. And I see it all the time. They're like, I want to commit right now. I'm like, you visited one school. Like,
Right.
why? Like, can we wait? Can we draw this out a little bit? Or it's
Right.
okay. And like, you get kids choosing the wrong school for them. Like you're saying, let it play out. Like you said, academics matter a lot, and these other academic schools need to wait longer. But it's that like they don't want to wait because they could just
No.
post right now.
Well, and it's also probably a bit of relief on their psyche, right? If they're
Mm-hmm.
seeing all their friends posting, that they've committed,
Yep.
it's hard for a
Totally.
teenager who's already dealing with all these other things, social, just general growth as a person, and then to feel like I'm left out here. Like
Oh,
I'm,
totally.
I'm the one that didn't get chosen. So I think that's where the parents need to step in, right?
100%.
And probably the coaches too, when we're talking about what clubs you choose, like which coaches are going to say that, what you
Yep.
just said to their players, like, let's take a breath and really look at this, because if you tear your ACL or, you have a bad shoulder injury or you're flunking out of school and lacrosse is no longer part of it,
Mm-hmm.
are you still going to love it?
Yeah. Your coach needs to be an advocate for you and help. I feel like I'm a counselor more than I am like a club coach during that time. So it's just like, hey, it's okay. Like, and I tell stories like this person waited a whole year and there was still a spot, or, and helping have the right advocate put the right expectations on kids. Like, hey, these schools aren't realistic. Like, let's go to realistic expectations as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then helping kids be okay with playing club somewhere or playing a different division, and all that stuff is really important.
What can we do as parents, as an example for our kids? Like maybe it's not reposting every
Mm-hmm.
goal or every play
Right.
on our Instagram pages. Like, I don't know, like what would your advice be to lessen some of the impact that social media has on how kids perceive themselves and their team?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can just like talk about it less or emphasize it less, is like, and that's why I try my best in Penn Charter and in Triple H. Not like, obviously we're excited if we get ranked high, but hopefully you were ranked high because you did all the things that you're about, like being a
Right.
great teammate, working hard, and you did it the right way, rather than like, I mean, I sub evenly, like for throughout the whole high school, and people are like, oh, we could have beat this team. I'm like, I'm not going to all of a sudden not sub evenly. Like that's
Right.
not what we're here for. You know what I mean? And
Right.
the girls on the sideline need to encourage other, you know what I mean? And just like creating that type of environment. And if I'm like, if we're in this to win national championships, there is no national championship. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
make sense, So I think,
And it creates a divide on the team between
totally.
the kids.
Yeah. And my kids know, like, you're going in, you're playing this many sets or this many minutes, and you're coming out. Like, there are different times where like it might be a different situation, but that's the way it kind of is. And they know that. And it's creating like, all right, that win or that person, that stat doesn't matter as much. And after the game, coaches, I encourage them to like call out the kids that like aren't scoring all the goals, or like the glue players, you know what I mean? Or someone that was a great teammate. And I think parents, if you can emphasize that too. And I think the biggest thing is telling kids they had a great game when they didn't score goals. Because I think sometimes like people think that's all that matters.
Right. And it's like, what about your defenders? Like
Yes.
they
Yeah.
almost
No.
never score goals. They can have a great game.
I laugh at this like obsession with the 100 goals. Like people get a ball and like there's pictures. And it's the one time I kind of get cocky with my kids. I'm like, you're supposed to score goals. Like,
Yeah.
if you like 100 goals is not that many. I scored 400 and I was a defender in college. Like you should
Right.
have 100 a season if you're having
Right.
like the best season ever. So like this obsession with 100 goals, and I'm like, there's a million people scoring 100 goals because it's easy. Like,
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
I get it. It's not easy. I'm not taking it away, but we created this like stat thing of like posting it on Philly Lacrosse and all that stuff. And I'm more about like, my girls know we do not celebrate 100 goals. I don't want my girls counting their goals to know like, oh, I'm almost there. Then I feel like that's hard and crazy too.
Yeah.
And
Well, it becomes like a false finish line.
yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like it's almost like, oh, I got to 100. Now I can relax. Like,
Right.
no, like you need to, there is no
And then
finish line right
that
now.
kid goes in like a scoring rut for 3 games because they need to like score that 100th goal.
I got the ball.
Yeah, exactly.
If it were, so I actually got a question, which I thought was a good one, from somebody who DM'd me, and they said, do you think that club sports is hurting the quality of high school sports?
I think it depends on the club. I think it's situational. Yes and no. And like I said, I don't know the other sports as well. I do know that we have had some issues with our basketball players at Penn Charter only playing basketball, because maybe that is AAU making it a hard thing to do everything else. I obviously am a big proponent of playing multiple sports, so I make it easy, and I promote that, and I tell my girls, I'm like, I want you to play basketball, like I want you to do squash, I want you to do indoor track and all that stuff, because I know how much of a job it is when you get to the next level. That's the only time they can do this.
Right.
And then, so I think the Soccers of the world used to be a little bit worse when the kids couldn't even play for their high school team.
I mean, listen, I hope it has changed, because I know that there's some clubs that won't let their players play for middle school, which I don't know. I think middle school sports have been like a blessing for, I mean, it's just, there's no
sports are like single-handedly the most impactful thing that's made me the player I am, the coach I am. Like it was amazing. Like, and I say, people are like, what was your best memory in high school? Someone asked me that something. I'm like, PCGA day. Like, no, GAPC day.
Yeah. Watch it there.
But I'm like, it's great. It was the best. And that's soccer. It's not even a sport that I played in college. So it's like very interesting. It's very impactful. And you get to, you're working, I think you get less injuries because you're not doing the same thing over and over.
Right.
And you're staying fit in other ways.
That's exactly, yeah. And I feel like every skill that you learn in one sport carries over into another sport. If you were the god of sports, what would a model of youth sports, an ideal model, look like for you?
I mean, I try and do it as much as I can with Triple H. Obviously, there's all these things that like add extra, but I would do away with fall, like the non-season, because like, especially in high school, like they should be playing soccer or field hockey or tennis or any of that stuff. So I would probably do away with one of the seasons. Like it used to just be like, you have your one club season. Now we have like 2 mini seasons. And no offense, it's not even good lacrosse. Like the college coaches are like, they're not even playing that well right now because they haven't played in a while and they took a break.
Yeah.
So figuring out to reframe the second season that created in club.
How would you encourage all of our behavior to encourage more refs to be willing to be at games?
That's what I tell my parents and our parents. I'm like, do you know how like hard it is to be a ref? Like, I don't want to be in their shoes, but I just think like, be grateful that they're there reffing the games to make this possible. And I mean, there's some refs I don't get along with, and I'm like, I wish that wasn't my ref, but it is what it is. And I'm like, it's another, however we react to it is the way it's going to happen. So when I show up and they're the refs I don't like, I'm like, all right, it's all right. We're going to get through this, and we're going to change the way we do some things and not complain and talk about them and yell at them. That's setting no example for the kids. And like, I think parents, you have to do the same thing, because 9 times out of 10, the kid comes back the next day like, it was a ref's fault. I'm like, probably because your parents said that, but no, you scored less goals.
Right. Exactly. And even if it was like, you can't, that's not something that you should say out loud. Like, even if it's in your head, like, and that's like, something that you say
it jokingly, or you're mad at it, but I'm never going to be like, I don't know. It's their job to try and call the game fair, and hopefully they're doing their job with respect to both teams and, calling it fairly. And that's the best you can hope for.
What would your guidelines be for when it's appropriate for a player to reach out to a coach with concerns or worries or advice, versus when is it appropriate for the parent to intervene and then talk to the coach? Because, I mean, personally, at a certain age, I think that the kids should be doing all the communication, right? Unless it becomes a situation where it is detrimental to the kid's confidence or to their psyche, or it's not appropriate language that they're using. And I don't mean swearing. I just mean like you're supposed to lift your players up, right?
Yep.
So what advice would you give to parents about when, this is when you should get involved and the rest you need to leave up to the kids?
Yeah. I mean, I think that the really youth level, like parents, don't like go to the coach all the time, but you should be okay with like, all right, hey, my daughter's like nervous or she's feeling left out. Like, I think that's totally fine to talk to the coach, but just, be respectful that it's not all the time. And then you're exactly right. I think in the 7th, 8th grade, even 6th, if you can try and get them to like advocate for themselves is huge. If they're having an issue with anything or, I mean, there was one time a kid came out to me and was like, hey, why didn't I play? And like I just said, I sub evenly, like we missed that person. You know what I mean? Hey, so sorry. I'm so glad that she said something rather than like, thinking about it and thinking that I didn't like her or she didn't play well. So there's times like I think they need to come on and speak up 100%. And then in high school, I make like all my kids should come talk to me unless there's a huge issue. And if there is an issue, I want the kid with the parent too, typically. So it's not like I'm meeting you, but don't tell my child that I'm meeting you. I'm like, we should be on the same page. So I think the more you can allow your kid the responsibility to have that confidence to speak to their coach, they'd be surprised, not how easy it is, but like they'll have a different relationship with that coach. They'll bond in a better way, even if it's a hard conversation.
Yeah. And I think it's important too that they learn the skill of wanting to talk to somebody and maybe not getting the answer that they want to hear. Like having that bravery and that courage to write an email or to talk to a coach. And, maybe your wish is, like you said, like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I miss it. And maybe the feedback is you need to work a little harder on this, or I didn't like your attitude in the last game. And that's part of the beauty of athletics, right? Is like you get those life skills.
Because usually when the parent comes, their parent is complaining about something, they're missing a whole thing. Like, well, actually, one time I had a parent complain to me and being like, why didn't my daughter play? I'm like, your daughter asked to come out. Like, her ankle hurt. Do you know what I mean? Like, she asked to not play. And now I'm getting in trouble for not playing her. So, like, it's like having that balance.
And I've actually seen parents, like a kid gets hurt and legitimately looks hurt. And I've been guilty of this too. Like one of my kids was sick last year and like we thought he was over it. And he was at this township and I'm like, go, like, what are you doing? Get on the field. And it like turned out he really was sick and had like walking pneumonia. But anyway, well, just erase that from the past. But like, I do see sometimes like kids look hurt and parents are like, just go play, stick it out. I'm like, why? Like they should.
Yeah. And 9 times out of 10, the kids like, my ankle's hurt. I'm like, well, if you're not going 100%, like I can't. Like that's what I preach. You have to go 100%. You know what I mean? So
Here is our rapid fire to wrap it up. So basically, I'm going to list a few people or roles. And you tell me what your quote unquote wish is for them. The whistle happy ref.
Oh, let the kids play. I'm always like, we're at running clock tournaments sometimes and the ref calls like 9,000 calls. It's like you played for 10 minutes. So let the kids play, have fun, call it if it's like crazy.
Stop being drunk with power in your yellow flag.
Oh, and also don't end the game on like an 8-meter. I'm like, really? You're going to end the game by giving them an 8-meter?
The parent who coaches their kid on the sideline.
Cheer, don't coach. It's going to end up really bad for you. And what if I'm saying the wrong different thing than you are? I think that's the biggest thing and
confusing for the kid.
Yeah, it's so confusing. So I think just cheer. When in doubt, just cheer and be that positive person on the sideline.
Okay, your wish for an 8-year-old kid.
Here, have fun. I wish I could be you right now. Have fun, do a million things. Play a million.
Play with mud.
Yeah, play with mud. Yeah.
Your wish for a 16-year-old athlete.
16-year-old athlete. Love the process and love what it takes and like to get to places and so you can feel your success and don't just think a lot of kids want to jump to the success point and like learn to love the daily grind. Because that makes everything worth it.
Your wish for your 18-year-old self.
My 18-year-old self. So like starting
if you
college,
could go back and be like
starting college, nutrition. I wish I knew more about food and fuel and nutrition. I'm like, holy smokes, if I was eating the right things at the right time, or like hydrating, not dehydrating myself.
Yeah.
Nutrition is crazy. Just the way I know it affects my body now after having a baby and being like the fittest I am now. I wish I could go back in time and I'm like, I would dominate. I would like be so fit and
I
fast.
think you did a good job, but anyway.
It's like, I wish I knew the body more. Like,
Yeah.
and especially for females.
Yeah.
I think they don't understand how much nutrition impacts their play.
Wait till you get to my age. It affects everything. All right, Colleen, thank you so much. I really hope that you keep giving the advice and being the positive influence you are in the sport, because I think that the most important thing is that coaches want to grow the sport in general. They don't want to just grow their club or their high school, and that we can all like take it down a notch on the sidelines, and certainly not feel like there's so much pressure on us as parents, and that we don't displace that onto our kids, because they are just kids.
Just kids, and everything happens for a reason, and everyone will land at a great spot.
Great. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
See you on the field.
Yeah. See ya.